I want to be the perfect parent.
Ooh.
Well, I am doing better than what I had, but I still feel like I should be doing more.
And I would wake up, touch her, and make sure she was breathing. I can only imagine that once they become teenagers, it's even a bigger sense of worry as a parent. There's a lot of pressure on us parents to be perfect parents, which is impossible because it's like we cannot. Hey guys, welcome back to Elevate. Today we're going to be talking about the things they don't tell you about parenting.
So one thing they don't tell you is that every parent is winging it. How do you feel about that?
For sure. I think that some parents think that they've prepared themselves enough, but you can never prepare yourself for the unknown, right? And a kid is pretty spontaneous. I mean, not spontaneous in the fact that, you know, they arrive to the world. I mean, you know when they're going to arrive. And some of us, you know, are having spontaneous kids that they didn't even know were going to arrive. But what I'm saying is you don't know what you're going to get with any given child. Every child is different. You know, every newborn is different. You have colicky babies. You have very calm babies. You have babies who will sleep throughout the night the first month that they're born. And you have babies who won't sleep throughout the night for the whole year.
Yeah, and also it also depends if you have, let's say, a boy first, like we did, and then you have a girl. It's like, yeah, our daughter was easier, but it was a totally different process.
It was a totally different experience for me.
Yeah.
Like Armani, he really did it for us, you know, especially those first couple of days. He was a crying baby, and he was like constantly crying every 2 to 3 hours for his milk. And he really didn't let us sleep for about at least half a year. I want to say that after the 6 months, he kind of improved a bit, but it wasn't really until like the year that we could say like, okay, we slept all night.
Yeah.
But
our daughter was totally opposite.
He wasn't terrible by the stories that I hear from other parents. He wasn't like the worst. Like the first maybe week was, I feel, the worst.
Yeah.
Then after that, you know, he would wake up, but it wasn't like every 2 to 3 hours. So he did get gradually better, but we still didn't sleep all night until he was like 1. And then I had my daughter, and I was literally preparing myself for like having the same thing happen. And this girl started sleeping all night when she was 1 month old.
Literally.
And I would wake up, touch her, and make sure she was breathing because I'm like, this can't be normal. And like from 1 month old, my daughter literally slept throughout the whole night.
I would even say like before. I feel like she's like off the bat, maybe like a week, 2 weeks. She was.
But then I also feel like because I was more experienced at that point, like I was preparing myself. You know, I was like trying to get the most rest possible before I gave birth, and I was like more informed about like breastfeeding versus like formula milk. And I feel like before I left the hospital, like I made sure the nurses like taught me how to really latch her on properly. Those are little things that I didn't really do with Armani because I was inexperienced and I just didn't know what to ask for. And I felt like if I asked that, is it a dumb question?
Yeah.
Like, so there was a lot of little things that as a new parent, I feel like I didn't seek enough information about. I did the best I could with what I had. But when it came to Zena, I was more mature. I was more prepared, you know, in terms of like, you have to make sure like the baby is latched on correctly on your breast in order for them to actually not hurt you as much. With Armani, that kid, I didn't even know how to latch him on properly. He didn't latch on properly, and it was just hurting me. So it's like I gave up on that so quickly.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this can't be it. I'm not going to be walking around with like sore nipples.
For real.
You know, it was terrible. And it could still happen when like your baby latches on correctly, but it's definitely less stressful on your body when you're doing it correctly and your baby knows how to do it. So that was like a totally different experience with Zena. And so I also feel because I was more experienced in that sense, maybe I say like the fact that she was breastfed more than Armani was made her a calmer baby.
Maybe. I also feel like though with Armani, I feel like you not necessarily depended more on me, but you was kind of like, hey, he's a boy. Like, what do we do? And then with Zena, I was like, babe. And then with Zena, I was like, babe, she's a girl. Like, is this normal? Like, so I would look to you, and then you would look to me when it was like boy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But also I realized that with Armani, I realized how quickly he grew up. That when I had Zena, in my mind, I wasn't sure if she was going to be my last baby. So for me, I was like, well, this is a girl. Now we have a boy and a girl. She might be our last baby.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I was like, I'm going to embrace this. Like, I'm really going to take this in. I'm going to bond with her when she's on my breast. Like, that's bonding time with mommy and baby. So I was really much more conscious of like understanding that those moments are momentary and they go by so quick and they're never going to come back. Like, when are you going to be breastfeeding your kids ever again? Like, that's not going to happen. It's something that's so special for that moment in time. And it's such a short time that you get to do that and bond in that way with your children. So I always tell new moms now, like, I don't want to make them feel bad if they aren't able to, because I know it's hard, especially for first time moms. The last thing you want is to feel guilty over not getting something correctly, right? Because there's many things that can play into it not happening for you. But now that whenever I come in contact with someone who's going to become a new mom and who has never been that, I always encourage them to like educate themselves, to before you leave the hospital, like try for like a lactation nurse to like teach you how to do it, because you might find that it's such a soothing thing for you and the baby to do. So it's just a learning curve, you know? Like, nobody's perfect. Yeah. Nobody knows how to do things. It's just we do the best we can with what we have.
That's also another thing that they don't tell you about parenting, is that guilt hits you all the time. So it's like you're constantly guilty of, am I being a good parent? Should they be eating more? Should they be eating more veggies? Are they not eating enough? Like, why are they always sick? Is it something that I'm doing? Is it?
And sometimes like your kids grow up. Like now, like I have a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old. Crazy. Like I can't even believe I say that sometimes. But now I'm 33 years old and I'm still learning a lot of things about, you know, I listen to a lot of podcasts and, you know, I read, you know, listen to some audiobooks and that have to do with like the human psychology. And I'm still learning things about how important, like, let's say those first 3 years of like a child being on the earth, you know, how important they are in terms of relationship with their parents.
Yeah. And I just also want to say before you continue that if you're new here, if this is the first episode you come across, this is Elevate, a podcast. We talk about marriage, relationship, parenting, and just elevating your life and being better than yesterday. We post every Monday at 6 p.m. So just make sure you subscribe.
And more importantly, how to elevate all your relationships, because we feel like relationships are very important to have a happy, successful life.
For sure. But yeah, back to being guilty.
Yes. So, you know, I'm still learning, you know, the different things that you should be doing, like as a parent of like a toddler or a newborn. And I'm obviously already past that stage, right? I've been past that stage. But it's also normal for you to sometimes think, like it's happened to me where it's like, like I read something, for example, like, I don't know, you should have been doing X, Y, and Z with your toddler. And then you think back like, damn, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
But you know that you didn't do it intentionally. You just didn't do it. And then you start feeling guilty like, damn, did I mess something up?
Yeah. I feel that way too. Like being a father, especially to Armani, because I'm trying to have a different relationship like that I didn't have. So like with Zena, I don't know, I feel like it's more natural, but I still have things to learn just because she's a girl. So I'm like trying to protect her. But with Armani, it's like I have to teach him, I have to show him that I love him, but also like how to be a man, like grow up as a man.
Yeah.
So it's like a battle that I always do. And sometimes I'm like, you know, I try to do the opposite from what I had, like, you know, going to all the baseball game, coaching, this and that. And even like if I miss one or I feel like, oh, I could have done better or spoken to him better, it's like I start bashing myself like, damn, why are you, you know, guilty again? Like, but it's like, well, I am doing better than what I had.
Yeah.
but I still feel like I should be doing more. But it's just hard to instantly make that switch. Like,
I feel like it's something that's very normal for parents to feel. And I feel like in this time, in this period in time, there's a lot of pressure on us parents to be perfect parents, which is impossible. Because it's like we cannot, like we're never going to be perfect. It doesn't matter. Like we're not going to be perfect parents. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure in this current day and age for parents to be perfect. Like we need to know everything. We are not allowed to like cause any type of trauma. And it's like I've learned also through my own experiences that like facing some sort of trauma, even if it's like mild trauma, because I mean, let's face it, there's so many things that can traumatize you, right? Like it's inevitable.
Yeah.
It's almost inevitable because in order for you to have like a completely trauma-free life, you would literally have to have perfect parents and a perfect surrounding, and that's impossible.
Yeah.
So I feel like the best thing that we could do is have self-awareness and learn to admit when you've been wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I did mess up. Like, I'm sorry. Like, learn that, you know, it's okay for you to apologize to your kids if you messed up. If you said something that maybe you shouldn't have said. If maybe you spoke to them in an inappropriate tone because you were very upset. You know, it was heat of the moment, but learn to just take a step back and say, you know what, that was wrong. I'm sorry. So that they can understand that you're human and that it's okay. Like, you know what, my mom and my dad have taught me that I don't have to be a perfect human being. I just have to have some self-awareness and try to be better every day. Just making our kids understand that, you know, we're not perfect human beings and that they shouldn't expect us to be perfect. We are wiser than they are because we are older and we've been alive for longer than they have, but they shouldn't, you know, I can remember for myself when I was a child, you know, you think of your parents as like the person that knows it all. Like you feel like they're almost like a superhero kind of. And I feel like in a sense, you know, it's a disadvantage for them to believe that entirely. Like there's a certain magic to it, but we shouldn't try to always be that perfect person because it's impossible to be perfect. So at some point, in some way, somehow, you're going to say something that might be hurtful to them. And it's okay to just apologize and have them understand that, hey, life isn't perfect, but everything is more about, it's more than what happens to you is how do you deal with it going forward. And I think that's the best thing that we could teach our kids.
True. Another one that they say is each age has its challenges. And I know we spoke earlier about, you know, the newborn baby stage and how that was difficult for us.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like every age is different. Even when we had Juju on our podcast and she was talking about like her battles with, you know, now she has kids that are in their 20s and she was, you know, challenged with that. And like we have a 10-year-old and we also have a 5-year-old. So it's like our Manny's challenges are way different than Zena's challenges.
For sure. 2 different stages, right? Yeah, I mean, you just have to go through the motions with them, you know, like.
No, because, you know, there's people that say like, oh, once you finish with the newborn, like it's over, like you're good.
No, there's always going to be something that's challenging in whatever developmental stage they're at.
Yeah.
Whether it is that they're starting to go to school, you know, and they've never been away from you, like since they were born, or, you know, they're about to go to middle school and, you know, it's like now they're like growing up a little bit and you're afraid about, you know, who are the kids that they're going to start hanging out with, the influences that they're going to start being surrounded by. Yeah. And then when they become a teenager, I feel like all those stages are so equally important. But I can only imagine that once they become teenagers, it's even a bigger sense of worry as a parent because it's like you have more control over a child that's small, in an easier way, right? Than a teenager who feels like they're grown and, you know,
recently
it's difficult.
Recently I was talking to somebody that was here and they recently had a baby and, you know, was saying like, oh, it's expensive, stuff like that. and it's hard. And I kind of said, like, I don't know if it gets any easier or less expensive, because I don't think it does. I don't think it ever does.
It
like,
doesn't get easier or less expensive.
maybe like the sleepless nights, but then you battle with other things.
But I don't like to say that to like new parents, because I feel like, I don't know, like.
But it's the truth. Like, why would I lie and say?
No, but you don't.
But I don't say like in a dramatic way, like, oh, prepare yourself.
Yeah, because some people will be so really dramatic, and it's like, well, just because you had it super, because there's differences.
Yeah.
There's people who end up with kids who don't give them any trouble at all, and then you telling a parent like, oh no, it's like hell from here, like I mean, but like there's challenges in every stage, but I'm just saying, like, I don't like it when people throw in their negativity in there, because everything does have their challenges, but it doesn't mean that they're not bearable. And I also don't want anyone listening who doesn't have any children. I don't want to make you feel discouraged from having kids, because that's also not where I stand with that. Like, I don't feel like you shouldn't have kids. I feel like having kids,
I have all of them.
Having kids gives you your challenges. If anything, I would say you can wait to have kids. Like, if you can wait to be out of your 20s to have kids, do. But then again, it also depends where you are in life in your 20s, you know? So it's different for everyone. But to say not have any kids because it brings challenges, that's not where my mind is at.
And it's also not like challenges that you can't overcome. It's like, it's like little challenges. Like, I
feel like they're challenges that will make you stronger.
Yeah.
So in a sense, it's just, for me as a believer, it's just part of life. It also gives you a sense of meaning sometimes. Like, sometimes I think, well, not me personally, because I have like a lot of personal like goals. So I feel like if I didn't have kids, I would be busy with other things. But let's say there's people who, they live a very straightforward life. Like, they just want to have a job that they're comfortable in, get back home and live, a nice, cozy life. They don't have like these extravagant goals, that some of us may have in our head.
Well, but kids also make you realize what your true goals are. Because your true goals when we didn't have kids that I met you are not the same goals you have now.
No, because, well, obviously they start to change the way you think about going about things, because it's like all of a sudden you don't have time to waste. So, but it's true. Like, they can give you even a greater sense of purpose.
Of course.
Because,
I mean, for your example, let's say that when we first met, like, you was kind of like, oh, I want to climb the corporate ladder and I want to be like the boss of any company.
That's what I thought I wanted.
And now you have kids, and I wouldn't say necessarily that the kids changed that for you. Definitely, they definitely did. Yeah. But now you're like, I want to stay far away from that as possible. Like, you still want to be a boss, but not necessarily
my own.
Yeah.
Like, I want it in my own terms. I just when you're young,
and you also want to embrace more being like a mother.
Yes. You just don't know how you're going to feel about parenting until you become a parent. And I had this idea when I was younger that it's like, I'm going to be fine. Like, I'm going to be totally okay with just, leaving my kids with grandma while I go work. Like, I'm just going to be okay with that the rest until they leave my house, right? This is what I thought. I'm just going to have a very, nice career, and whatever I chose to go to college for. And I thought that was going to be fulfilling for me. And it wasn't until I had my kids that I realized, like, damn, I really don't like to be told. I really don't like for someone else to have so much control over my life that if I wanted to go pick up my kids early from school or they have an activity, I have to ask someone else for that permission. I didn't like that at all. I still don't. At this point, I have a very understanding, boss, thank God. And I don't feel like I have that issue at the moment. But still, I don't like the fact that if I was to leave the current job that I'm in, wherever I go, still, I have to ask for permission to do things with my kids.
Yeah.
And then, now I see the value in being a more present parent. I see how you can try to be the best parent you can be, but you know, where I live, New York, it's very difficult. Everybody has their own things going on, and most people don't have a community or the grandparents or the aunties and, you know, around because they have their own thing going on. And I don't blame them because it's difficult. Life is difficult. Everyone's trying to figure it out here. And so unless you come from like a wealthy background where you have grandparents that they're like, you know,
retired,
laid back, and they're like, don't worry, you know, I'll take care of the kids, you know, and you know that they're not worried with their own problems, it's difficult for you to just let go completely because you need to be present. You need to be aware of what your children are consuming on these tablets, if they have phones, on TV. So now as a parent, I feel like it's crucial for you as a mom to be able to be present.
Yeah.
That's why now if I meet a new parent, if I was to give them an advice, I would say, I would never tell them not to have kids because I think kids are a blessing for your family. But I would say, if you're in your early 20s, you're not in a rush. Yeah. There's no rush to have kids. Like, find someone that sees the value in family just like you. Make sure you find a provider man who's okay with that. And make sure that whenever you guys are ready to have kids, like make sure that for a year, not even, for like 2-3 years, that your partner can hold down the household so that you can be a present mom for at least 2 to 3 years for that baby who's going to need you.
Yeah.
And for as much as you may think that you may not want to be that person, you don't know how you're going to feel again when that baby is here with you. Like all of a sudden, like you get this sense of, I'm responsible for everything that this, and it's like, you know that before they get here, but it's something you just can't explain.
It's not even just responsible. It's like responsible and also like you want to do everything you possibly can like for that.
Right. And then there's also such a thing as postpartum depression. You don't know how you're going to feel after you give birth. You need a sense of community. So make sure that when you are about to give birth, you have people around you that can, even if it's just one person, that can like show their support for you whenever you may need it. Because it's tough. It's tough to become a new mom. And let's say you are one of that percentage of the women who come down with like postpartum depression and not have anyone around you to lean on. Yeah. Like, and then in that picture, there's a newborn. But you
also have to, like, if you are that person, like, you also have to realize that sometimes people just don't know that you are going through it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you need to like have someone around that, you know, can maybe keep an eye on you, but also like realize if you are going through that, you have to be vocal about it. And I know it's going to be hard because when you're in depression, you don't want to talk to anyone. Like you don't want to tell anyone your problems, but you have to. Why? Because now you have to think some human, some little baby, right, depends on you at this point, right? Especially when you just gave birth. And your energy, like babies feel that.
Yeah.
So not to make you feel guilty, but make sure that you are seeking the proper care. Make sure that if you don't, maybe you don't feel like you have anyone around, God forbid, you know, or you don't feel comfortable talking to your family members, make sure you're at least seeking help from professionals, you know, whoever your OBGYN is, make sure you're being honest and you're telling them, I don't feel okay.
Yeah, because it's also challenging that, you know, you do want to depend on somebody, but that person might also have their own problems. So it's like,
and they're not going to know.
Yeah. So it's like, if that person is also going through a lot of stuff and then you go and you dump all your stuff, that person could be in a situation where they're trying to figure out themselves. And it's like, damn, how do I help you? And I can't even help myself.
No. And sometimes we lie. Like I'm guilty of that. Like sometimes, you know how people in passing, oh, how are you? And you're like, I'm good. Yeah. I'm good. Right. But you know, you're not.
Yeah.
And so then, you know, down the line, we might feel, you know, resentment because, oh my God, nobody was there for me. But was nobody really there for you? Or were you not even a little bit open to like telling people exactly how you were feeling? Sometimes we just need to let it out. Yeah. We just need to talk about it. We just need to say exactly how we feel. Like, people are not mind readers.
For sure. Another thing that they don't tell you about parenting is that worrying is the new constant state. Do you feel like that's true?
Ooh.
I think so. Like, it don't even have to be like some crazy, I'm worrying about something, but you are always worrying about something.
Well, yeah, because you just have more responsibility. But on that same note, I can say that while you can be worrying, right, about something, they can also remove your worry, if that makes any sense. Like, I could be in my thoughts home, you know, while everyone is at school, my husband's at work, and then everybody arrives, you know. And it's like all of a sudden my daughter is like so happy about her day in school. And Armani is like talking about something that happened in his classroom. And it's like they bring me back to the present.
Yeah.
They force me to be in the present, which is, that's why sometimes I say, like, sometimes some people can talk about, you know, like, oh, having kids being such a negative thing. But sometimes I question, like, even when, let's say, you're a little depressed about something, right? Which might be meaningless, right? But you're just in your head. They could bring you back to the present moment, like instantly. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like all of a sudden you get out of your head. And it's like, what am I even thinking about, you know?
Yeah.
So.
And now that you mentioned that, it's kind of like connecting back to what I said earlier about, like, sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough. And it'll be like those times that I'm like, have so many things in my head. And, like, you know, let's say the kids want to play Jenga or Uno. And it's like, right now in my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm in a different planet right now.
Yeah.
And they want to play Uno. And I'm like, you know, sometimes, of course, we'll say yeah. And then sometimes it's kind of like, I don't feel like playing right now. But what's the right thing? It's like,
there is no right thing. I just feel like don't make your kids feel like they're not important to you. Like, make sure your kids know that they're important for you.
But I think they know that. I think, like, I don't doubt that our kids know that.
No,
it's more like our inner.
No,
like,
but there's
like our inner thoughts.
From conversations I've heard from other people, I feel like some people may not understand how much or how important your attention is to them, right? And so for some people, I can even say it from when I was growing up, they're in their head, they're just like, I'm feeding them, I'm providing everything that they need, they have a roof over their head, they're safe, they don't need my attention, like, you know. But they do, like, even if it's not 24/7, I know we can't, you know, be giving our attention 24/7, and if you can, great, but that's almost impossible for most parents. Even if it's just in the morning time or in the nighttime or sometime in the afternoon that you, like, take out and, like, ask them how was your day and listen to them and what they have to say, and, you know, how their new friends at school, you know, are doing, and, you know, how they feel about it. Even if it's just those little things, just making sure they know, like, I hear you. I know what you're like. Oh my God, now you're into ballet. Oh, now you're into playing soccer. Oh, cool. Like, are you into art now? You're getting really good at art. Like, just making sure that they understand that they are important to you. Yeah, because sometimes parents could feel like I'm doing everything for them. Like, what else do they want from me? Yeah,
because even when, let's say I pick them up from school, like, I always ask when I get in the car, oh, how was school? Like, Armani, how was school? Zena, whatever, we talk on the way home. And then when they get home, like, you ask them, like, oh, how was school? And then, you know, Zena will start talking.
Sometimes they could be very vague, and especially Armani. Like, Zena will tell me a little more, but Armani will be like, good. And then so I have to, like, kind of take it out of him.
I had a substitute teacher.
And I'll just be like, okay, so what, anything new happened today? Like, you know, did anybody get in trouble in class? You know, like, did somebody do really good? Like, I have to, like, ask other questions, because if I say a question that's, like, too vague, he'll be vague too. He'll be like, good.
And it's interesting because you ask him different questions than I ask him. So we have different conversations.
Yeah. basically, there may be things that we're missing, right? A lot of points that we're missing. But when it comes to parenting, there's no one size fits all.
I don't think there's ever a perfect parent. Like
No.
Parents are always learning.
Yes, there's no one size fits all on anything. I know that a lot of people like to say, well, you should do things this way. And then other parents are like, it's like black and white, right? Oil and water.
Mm-hmm.
And people have very different perspectives on how children should be raised. And I think overall, I think you should just get to know your child before deciding, like what is the right way to raise them, and give yourself some credit. Like you don't have to be a perfect person to be a good parent. As long as you are a person who knows how to take accountability for your actions, a person who recognizes that, hey, I make mistakes too, even as a parent, and it's okay for my child to know that I make mistakes.
Yeah.
I think that is the perfect recipe for being a parent. You don't have to be perfect, and your kids, it's okay. They can know that.
Yeah.
As long as they know that you're doing the best that you can, and respect that they should be respecting you as the parent, I feel like you should be good.
And I feel like also educating yourself, because it's like I want to be the perfect parent, but I'm aware that unless I educate myself and put things in my head and listen to things that would guide me in that direction, like it's never going to happen. Because if I'm not educating myself or listening to anything or looking up to parents that I feel like are doing better than me, like if I'm not exposed to that, I'm never going to know. I'm always going to do the same thing. So,
Right.
So just
being open.
Yeah.
Being open to good feedback, right? Listening to, recently I was listening to a podcast from a New York psychologist. She's like also a social worker, and she works with like troubled kids. Like I was interested in listening to her feedback because I know she has experience in her area, and she has dealt with kids who have felt troubled. And so I was interested in seeing how she, what were her recommendations for us parents to raise kids that are not troubled, right? And that podcast was amazing. I think we should share it down below because it's very long. It's like 2 hours long, but she mentions a lot of things that, a lot of parents could take notes on. And so things like that, like just, always understanding, I think with every area in life, just understanding that you don't have the answers all the time, and just being open for learning, could just help you elevate. So that's it for today's episode, you guys. Thank you so much for watching or listening. Until next time.
Peace.